Yeah, I'm delighted to be with you this afternoon. I'm going to talk about a platform called Liquefaction and a demonstration of this platform called Take My Ape. Now, we all know how keys work in the land of crypto. A key is used to control an address, and an address, in turn, custodies some set of assets. They can be tokens, they can be a native cryptocurrency. If one user, Alice, wants to transfer some value to Bob, she uses her private key to do so. She takes a transaction which says transfer, say, 1 ETH to Bob, and she digitally signs it using her key and then sends the transaction on chain. Once it's on chain, it's authoritative and the assets have been transferred. Private keys are called private keys precisely because they're supposed to remain private or secret. If you share your key with someone else, you're at risk of having your assets stolen. And so the prevalent model for management of keys today is what we call the single entity address ownership assumption. This means very simply that an address is associated in most cases with an individual who holds a corresponding key. Of course, there are multi-sig wallets and so on and so forth as well, but this is basically the prevalent model. You own your key, you are responsible for custodying a key you should not share with others. But suppose your key, instead of being controlled directly by you, were controlled by a program, say a private smart contract. This is something achievable using technologies like trusted execution environments. A trusted execution environment is a black box that can store and manage secrets with strong privacy and integrity assurances. So there's this other possibility, apart from the SCAO, in which users are not custodying their own keys directly, but have their keys controlled by a program within a TE. Use of the key then can be conditional. You can restrict the use of the key by the at least nominal owner of the key herself. And at face value, this may not seem very desirable, but actually gives range to a whole host of applications because it allows for flexible asset sharing. And I'll give you a demonstration of that when I talk about Take My Ape later. But first, let me enumerate some of the ways that you can use a system like this. You can, for instance, if you hold some tokens associated with a DAO, sell the voting rights associated with those tokens while retaining ownership of the tokens themselves. You can peel off these rights using a trust execution environment. The program running inside the environment will allocate rights to vote to whomever you've sold them to while retaining your rights to sell the underlying tokens. You can also do things like selling pre-vested tokens. If tokens are associated with an address not yet active, well, you can transfer their ownership off-chain in this environment. A program running in the TE can affect this shift, this change in ownership without any need for on-chain transactions, and therefore can bypass vesting schedules. Not necessarily a desirable thing, but something that's achievable here. You can also do things like sinkhole unwanted asset transfers. My classic example of this would be Vitalik Buterin receiving something like $7 billion worth of Shiba Inu. He graciously donated those Shiba Inu, but who knows what tax headaches that caused him. If they had gone to an address that was controlled by a key sitting in the TE, controlled programmatically, they could be sinkholed in such a way that it'd be possible to prove you never had control of the assets. You effectively never received them. You can also implement private DAOs. Many of you have heard of the Constitution DAO. The DAO assembled to buy a copy of the US Constitution. It lost at auction in part because it wasn't private. The amount of money the DAO had amassed was publicly visible, and therefore they could be easily outbid. But you can make such a DAO private in this type of environment. You can also do lots of other things, create overlays, smart contracts, and so on and so forth. But the application I want to focus on today, one built on top of the Liquefaction platform, is called Take My Ape. Here's the idea. Well, everyone, or I'd say most people here today, would love to own a Bored Ape, but not everyone has some $30,000 lying around, the current floor price or close to it. On the other hand, what does ownership mean? According to the Bored Ape Yacht Club license, ownership is mediated entirely by the Bored Ape smart contract. Now, if the Bored Ape smart contract says your address holds the ape, then you own it. Let's take a look at a particular Bored Ape. This Bored Ape here, number 8180, the lab coat and the bowler hat. And you can see it has a history of transfers, pretty active history of transfers from address to address. Well, according to the definition I just gave you a moment ago, what ownership means, these addresses have all owned the ape at some point. But here's the thing about this particular ape. These owners didn't pay $30. They paid about $1 to own the ape. How is this possible? Well, here's the story of this unusual ape. We used the Liquefaction platform to control addresses, the addresses that own the ape, in exactly this environment I described, private smart contract environment. So a key that owns the ape is sitting in an ATE and programmatically controlled. What the program does, controlling the key, is allow you all the rights of ownership associated with this ape except the right to sell it. So that right, it restricts from the current owner, but all other rights are retained. And what this has enabled us to do is build a system where anyone, that could be you, can own the ape for 15 minutes at the cost of just a single transaction. Send the Take My Ape platform, transaction, it will transfer to an address it creates for you. I'll outline the full process, and you own the ape for at least 15 minutes. Here's the process for taking ownership of the ape. When you use the Take My Ape platform, it will generate a fresh address for you, address A. It will transfer the ape to that address, and it will let you keep it for at least 15 minutes. Your address, because this transfer is happening on chain, is recorded as the ape's owner. And again, according to the Bored Ape Yacht Club license, you are officially the owner. And then after you've had possession of the ape and you've let the ape go, your private key will be released to you, so you have full control of this address. Now you might ask, well, what sense is this ownership? Isn't it really rental? Again, according to the licensing terms, this is ownership, and according to the access rights you get. So I said you have all the abilities that an owner has, all the capabilities during your 15-minute or greater period of ownership of the ape. Means you can use the Bored Ape Yacht Club Discord channel, you can use the BAYC studio, and so on and so forth. All of that becomes possible during your period of ownership because it really is ownership. All right, well, why does this matter? Bored apes are admittedly a slightly frivolous thing. Again, the goal here is to demonstrate the capabilities of this Liquefaction platform. Liquefaction operates off-chain. It doesn't require any on-chain changes. And so there are dramatic new possibilities for NFT collections, like the one that I've shown you here with the Bored Ape. You can do things like retrofitted lending. You can fractionalize NFT rights. You can connect NFTs to Web2 resources. And these are just the possibilities for NFTs. Liquefaction is useful for lots of other things. In fact, there are 2 companies already building their own services on the Liquefaction platform. Liquefaction is the result of a research project by people at Cornell Tech, IC3, and Stanford. You can find, with support from Oasis Labs, I should mention, Liquefaction backend runs on the Oasis Sapphire paradigm. And you can find information about Liquefaction at the URL indicated by the QR code here. And I'd encourage you to play with Take My Ape to get a sense of how Liquefaction works and of its pretty expansive capabilities. Thank you.